Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AAFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Hadn't intended to go off on that particular deal, but I just could not. I just couldn't get over the cluelessness of this woman. She votes for every property tax increase that she possibly can. I mean, she said with words that came out of her own mouth, I have never voted against a tax increase in my entire life. And now I can't afford to live here. Somebody please help me. Somebody come to my rescue. So it's just amazing to me. And again, it's just an illustration of what, I frequently say, ladies and gentlemen, that that liberals just do not think. I mean, they're the ones that are always talking about how they're smarter than everybody else, and they're more intelligent than everybody else, and they're more educated than everybody else, and they're more enlightened than anybody else. They just do not think. Their worldview is predicated purely and simply on emotion, not on reason, not on logic, but entirely on instinct and whatever they happen to feel. And the more strongly they feel something, the more convinced they are that their position is right. So it's the strength of it's not the strength of the logic or the research or the reasoning or the consistency with the Word of God, consistency with the truth, consistency with what we know from history. That's not what validates their worldview. It is how strongly they feel something. The strength and the intensity of their emotional attachment to an idea is all the validation that they need to believe that they are absolutely right and the rest of us are absolutely wrong. And that's what makes it difficult to reason with them. I mean, they're impervious to reason. You can't reason with them. We interviewed Dr. Ben Carson the other day on this program, and I want to be sure you understand, I love Ben Carson. I admire Ben Carson. I would love to have Ben Carson be the president of the United States. That would suit me absolutely just fine. But I think what Ben Carson fails to understand, I read his book. I read every word in the book. It is a great book. It's an excellent book. But Ben Carson's basic approach to disagreement, and he's applying this now not only to personal issues but also to public policy issues, is come now and let us reason together. He doesn't use that verse anywhere, but that's the thrust of the book. If you were to sum up his book in one Bible verse, that would be it. Come now and let us reason together. Let's talk things over. Let's get together. Let's kind of set aside our own prejudices for a moment, try to listen to each other, hear each other, understand where each other's coming from, and then see if we can find some kind of common ground, some way to go forward. Here is the problem with Ben Carson's formula. That works. That works if you have two parties who are willing to reason together. So if I'm willing to reason together and you are willing to reason together, then we can talk about this and maybe we can find some kind of a resolution. But if only one of us is willing to reason together, then come now, let us reason together, it will not work because the other individual's not going to reason with you. They're not going to want to talk with you. They're not going to want to debate. They're not going to want to discuss. They're just going to want to call you names. They're going to want to ridicule you. They're going to want to mock you. They are going to dismiss your point of view out of hand without even considering the reasons that may be for it. And there you are. And that's what I just not sure that Dr. Carson understands that about how vicious the world of politics is. Now, I've seen Ben Carson in a number of interviews as he's been on this book tour, and he has held his ground. When he's been attacked, when he's been misrepresented, when his words have been distorted, he's held his ground, and he's come back to articulating his point of view. So if somebody's listening to him and is willing to be a reasonable person, they get a lot out of what he has to say. But I'm not sure Dr. Carson understands that what he's up against is he's not up against people that are willing to reason together. He's up against brute force. He's up against anger. He's up against vitriol. He's up against meanness that doesn't reason and doesn't talk things over and doesn't evaluate things from a rational point of view. But I want to be very clear, and to Ben Carson's credit, as I've watched him in his interviews, he just hasn't retreated. He hasn't backed down. He hasn't shifted gears. He hasn't capitulated on any point. He's continued to stay right ahead. He's addressed misconceptions. And this is the thing that I'm not sure he understands. What's going to happen to him is that he is going to be misrepresented. His statements are going to be distorted. I know a little bit about what this is like because virtually everything I say that the left gets hold of, they twist, they distort it. They try to create the impression that I have said something different than what I have said. Now, first, I actually made some effort to clarify those distortions, those misinterpretations. I remember writing columns at the time, back in the early day, what I have said and what I have not said. And I would sort of address these distortions of what I had to say. And eventually you just realize, there's no possible way to keep up with that. You can't keep up with that. You can't parry every single thrust that comes your way. And number two, it wouldn't do you any good if you did because they don't care. I mean, they don't care if they have misrepresented you, misconstrued what you've said, misinterpreted. They're doing that intentionally. That's what they want to do because they want to take what you do and twist it and turn it in a way to make you look as bad as humanly possible. And I'm not sure Ben Carson has got an appreciation yet for exactly what you're up against when you get into the public arena. Now, to his credit, I don't think he'll back down. I don't think he'll retreat. But I think at some point you have to understand, look, my approach of wanting to reason with people, that's a good idea. That's a great idea. In a perfect world, that'd be perfect. We do not live in a perfect world. I live in a world as the President of the United States where I am up against people who only know brute force. They only know hate. They only know name-calling. They only know ridicule. They only know mockery. They only know demonization. They only know vilification. And all of that's being pointed right now directly at me. I still have a job to do. What I'm going to have to do is find those people who agree with me and instill in them the courage and the confidence to follow me in getting things done despite this mindless, irrational, completely illogical opposition. I mean, at some point, you just have to say, look, I don't have time for that. I've got a job to do, and I need to gather around me the people that agree with me and want to get these things done so we can move forward together. Now, I believe that Ben Carson has the capacity to be that kind of guy. And maybe we'll see that as he gets blistered more and more in these book stops. Maybe we'll see some of that strength and some of that assertiveness wind up expressing itself. Anyway, but I want to be sure you understand, I think the absolute world of Ben Carson, and a part of my concern is for him. I mean, this guy is a noble human being. I don't think you're going to find a guy with more integrity and character. He's an incredibly appealing individual. He's a man of obvious character and substance. I don't want to see him get chewed up. I don't want to see him get battered and bloodied and bruised unless he knows exactly what he's signing up for. So anyway, that's enough of my excursus on Ben Carson. But I just want to be sure you understand. I just think the absolute world of Ben Carson. Now, I want to. Here's another piece of good news, and number to call, by the way, if you want to join our conversation, talk about some of the items that we've talked about today. Ben Carson, the nature of politics, the fact that we now are afraid of our government. The good guys are afraid of our government instead of the bad guys, which is the way it ought to be. The mindlessness of liberals who vote for every tax increase that comes down the pike and then can't understand why they can't afford to pay them anymore. Your reaction to all of that. What we talked about at the beginning of the hour, that God's plan, he believes in the redistribution of wealth, believes absolutely, but he believes it ought to be voluntary. So don't let anybody tell you that the Bible does not believe or teach the redistribution of wealth. It does, but it teaches that it is to be done on a voluntary basis. It believes and teaches from the first books of the Bible to the last in the voluntary, not the involuntary redistribution of wealth. Involuntary redistribution of wealth is theft and not generosity at all. 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840 is the number to call. Give us a call. Again, that number, 888-589-8840. Here's the latest Gallup poll, and this is encouraging because it tells us, ladies and gentlemen, that we have something to build on. We can at times look at what's going on in our culture and we can wonder, is there any hope? How are things so bad that they are beyond recovery? Well, here's the latest Gallup poll, which indicates that 75% of the American people believe that the Bible is the Word of God. I repeat, 75% of your neighbors, 3 out of 4 people that you know, 3 out of the 4 people that live on your block, 3 out of the 4 people that live in your neighborhood, 3 out of the 4 people that you work with believe that the Bible is the Word of God. Now, I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, that's something that we can build on. Here's how it breaks down. 28% of the American people believe that the Bible is the actual Word of God and is to be taken literally word for word. That's what I believe. That's what you believe. 28% of us. That is not an insignificant number. But there is another 47% of us who believe that the Bible is the inspired Word of God, but don't believe that every single thing in it should be taken literally. Now, they got a problem, and that's a loophole you can drive a Freightliner through, but they believe that the Bible is the inspired Word of God, that it is a book that has been inspired by God. That means that 75% of the American people, the people that we know, the people that we recreate with, the people that we live with, the people that we live around, the people that we work with, 75% of us believe that the Bible is either the actual Word of God or it is the inspired Word of God. And I just have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that this is something that we can work with. This is something that we can build on. We can take advantage of the fact that 3 out of 4 Americans believe that the Bible has been inspired by God. And we can use that as a basis then for conversation about very, very important moral and public policy issues. So be encouraged by that. That is our winnable war moment for the day. 75% of the American people believe that the Bible is the Word of God. I say we can build on that. Don't give up hope. Way too soon to give up hope. I'll guarantee you those numbers aren't anywhere near that high in Europe. Focal Point AFR Talk.
Few words offer more